Welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're going to talk about a really powerful way of thinking, one that ties together a career spanning high-tech, global management, and academic innovation. It's called systems thinking, and to really get how it can change your whole approach to solving problems, we're going to follow one person's incredible journey of putting it into practice.
Have you ever been there? You're so deep in the weeds on a project that you've totally lost the big picture. You're trying to fix this one little thing, but somehow everything still feels broken. It's a frustrating feeling, right? Well, it's exactly that kind of challenge that systems thinking is designed to tackle.
So what is it really? Well, at its heart, it's about a shift in how you see things. Instead of just focusing on one isolated task or slapping on a quick fix and hoping for the best, systems thinking forces you to step back and see the whole system, all the interconnected pieces, what's really causing the problem, and how you can find a solution that lasts.
And honestly, the best way to understand this is just to see it in action. The source for today's explainer puts it just perfectly, framing an entire career around this one simple but powerful idea. It's like a special lens that helps turn all that messy complexity into something you can actually organize, understand, and improve.
This timeline kind of gives you the whole story, from engineer all the way to founder. For us, we're going to zoom in on these first three stages: engineer at Intel, then global manager, then academic director, to see how this way of thinking grows and adapts as the systems get bigger and way more complex.
All right, let's start at the beginning. The journey kicks off at Intel, in a role that sounds super specific, very technical, but this is actually where the seeds of that big picture thinking were planted.
So the job was designing automation processes for chipsets. And you can just imagine how easy it would be to put your head down, focus on your one little piece of the puzzle, and just call it a day. But that's exactly where a different approach started to take shape.
Instead of just tackling the immediate task, the key was asking a much bigger question. Hey, if I change this thing here, how does that ripple out and affect everybody else? And that one question led to designing processes that weren't just efficient on their own, but were modular, adaptable, and could actually scale across a bunch of different teams. It was about building a better system, not just a better part.
And this experience brings us to the first huge insight of systems thinking. A local fix is only as good as its ability to play nice with the entire system. What's the point of a perfect solution for one tiny part if it ends up breaking everything else?
Okay, so that lesson about compatibility, it's about to get scaled up, big time. We're not just talking about circuits and code anymore. Now we're talking about culture and continents. The system is now a massive international organization. The new challenge was huge. Connect engineers scattered all across the globe and, fix some pretty strained relationships between different regions. This isn't just a technical problem anymore. It's a human one filled with culture clashes, communication breakdowns, and silos where innovation goes to die.
You know what's so cool about the solution here? It wasn't just a series of one-off meetings or some corporate initiative. The whole approach was to design a system for collaboration. That meant creating leadership programs that could run themselves, building in feedback loops so the system could learn and adapt, and intentionally creating opportunities for people to connect and break down those silos.
And the payoff for thinking this way was profound. It wasn't just about getting a few projects done. It was about raising the strategic alignment of the entire organization and actually repairing those critical relationships between teams halfway across the world.
All right, now for a complete change of scenery. We're leaving the corporate world of Intel and heading to the academic environment of a top university in Europe, EPFL in Switzerland. Here, systems thinking was applied to what the source calls a living system, a research center that had hit a crossroads. So, the task at hand was to breathe new life into the EcoCloud Research Center. It needed way more than just a couple of new projects. It needed a total refresh of its vision and a complete redesign of how it operated, all to line up with what was happening globally in sustainability and cloud computing. And the impact was crystal clear. You could actually measure it. By redesigning the center's mission and how it delivered value, it led directly to a 50% jump in new projects. But it wasn't just about getting more stuff done. A more efficient system freed up enough resources to create entirely new research positions. Pretty incredible. But maybe the most powerful application of this whole mindset was in mentoring, in this case, over 50 students. The conversation shifted from the simple, kind of obvious question of, so what's your next job, to something much, much deeper. How do you build a resilient, purposeful career system?
It's about seeing your career not just as a straight line of jobs, but as this whole interconnected web of skills, relationships, and experiences.
So, after seeing this mindset in action across 3 totally different fields, how can you start using it yourself? Well, this final section basically distills that whole journey into a practical toolkit for seeing that bigger picture.
It really all comes down to asking the right kinds of questions. First, you have to map the system. You ask, what are all the relationships and dependencies here? Then, you try to find its engine by asking, where are the feedback loops, the obvious ones and, more importantly, the hidden ones? This helps you see how the individual parts really affect the whole, which lets you focus on the most important question of all. What does long-term success, what does resilience actually look like here?
At the end of the day, this is the fundamental shift. It's about aiming for change that actually lasts, not just patching things up with quick fixes. It's about digging deep for the root causes, instead of just reacting to whatever problem is screaming the loudest. And it's about finding solutions that strengthen the entire system, rather than just isolating one issue and accidentally creating 3 new ones down the line.
So as we wrap this up, I'll just leave you with this one thought. Take a look at your own work, your team, maybe even your personal goals. They are all systems in one way or another. So the only real question left is, what system will you improve?